Thanks a lot for joining me today. It's been intriguing learning more about Indus Biotech. And as a pharmacist and the guy that travels around telling people to focus on science, you might be the most important person I speak to today. No offense to anybody else, just saying, that's how it works. Can you kind of run me through, give me an overview of what goes on, like from point A to point Z with regards to the clinical studies that you do here at Indus Biotech?
Yeah. So for Indus Biotech products, we are trying to do evidence-based studies to create evidences to support our claims. And all we do is purely evidence-based science. So for that, we almost completed more than 350 studies, scientific studies, which include animal studies as well as clinical studies. Like we just completed about 48 clinical studies. So it's a good number, and they are all comprehensive studies, which I will tell you in detail. About 125 animal efficacy studies, even about more than 120 studies for mechanism of action, not only the efficacy but mechanism of action also. Naturally, all our products are undergone extensive area of toxicology studies.
So what's the flow like? I guess maybe that would have been a better question for me to ask you. What's the flow like? You have a new extract, and you're like, where do you, like, what's the first thing that you need to do? Is there a normal typical flow, like first you do this and then you have to do this, and then can you give us an idea what that looks like?
Sometimes it changes, but most of the time we start with animal efficacy study, because what happens is in body how it will behave, what will be the dose, what can be the potential actions, and that also gives us some idea about the mechanism and some idea about the possible long-term side effect if there are any.
Okay.
So that is the first stage. Then we undergo, we don't assume that because they are natural product, they will be safe. So we extensively do all the toxicology studies for safety, to confirm safety as per international guideline. And then we decide the dose, duration, population. This will give us some support from the previous study for the clinical study. So those studies are well designed studies. We will do, so they are quite extensive clinical studies. Then we come out with some claims, and no, we don't stop there. We just wanted to know how they work, how our products work. So mechanism study also we do, if it is required, sometime in between, sometime at the end, depending on the need.
So I have this question, but I also know a lot of people that want to know this. When you're creating something new, which is what I feel like Indus Biotech is all about, the creativity, ingenuity, etc. How do you determine what the dose is, going from an animal study to, like, and then I was saying, oh, we're going to do a human clinical trial. The dose in whatever animal it was this. How do you get? Is it a simple formula, or does it vary?
There is a guideline for industry by US FDA, not specifically for nutraceutical or for alternative medicine, but in general for drugs. So we generally follow those guidelines, which starts with safe dose instead of effective dose. To know the effective dose, we need to go for first safe dose. And then there are some factors and some formulas which are already mentioned in the guidance to industry guideline in US FDA site. So we follow those guidelines so that there is some proper method about it.
So, and then the last thing I've kind of always wondered too, like of that timeline, the process you talked about with, the animal part of it to begin with, et cetera, and then getting to the what I'll call the end of the human clinicals. Is there any one area that you always seem to like, this is the area where we're going to know, like it's a make or break point for moving forward? Or is it vary depending? I've always been wondered, like, how far do you have to go down this timeline before you go, this isn't going to work, or oh my gosh, we have something amazing?
Mostly in animal study, we generally get idea whether should we go ahead or not. Because we are dealing with the natural product, we are quite confident about the safety because we start with the food chain raw material rather than any herbal product. There is a because the foods are generally very similar to human body. They are very good acceptance is there. So generally we never had any issue with the toxicology, but we don't assume it. We do extensive study.
Okay.
So that time, and then it comes to the therapeutic margin value index. So safe dose and effective dose. How much is that? That is slightly, it's not mathematics, but it is more or less comes with the experience that whether should we go to clinical study or not.
I had this has really not a lot to do with what we're talking about, but people will probably appreciate this watching this video. We used to have the saying in pharmacy, the difference between something healthy for you and something toxic was the amount you took or consumed or whatever. Yeah.
It's similar. The concepts are same. In nutraceutical, we very carefully follow all the process which pharmaceuticals development, drug development follows, which gives us a very robust process and confidence on the process.
Great. Well, thanks for the awesome overview. I appreciate it. Besides just the number of either humans or human clinical trials you do, what also adds to like the reliability of the process and what you're doing?
So what we do basically because we wanted to avoid any bias from the studies. So we try to follow international guidelines, and for animal studies also there are certain guidelines, and for clinical study also there are certain guidelines. For example, clinical study, these guidelines we follow the same guideline what pharmaceutical drug development follows. It's called as ICH GCP, good clinical practice, because it is very comprehensive, well researched, well documented, and there are many of the professionals know about it. Most of the professionals. This is considered as very important to follow those guidelines. The documentation, particularly how recruitment is to be done, how ethics to be followed, what ethics to be followed, then what document should be maintained at the site, what document should be maintained by us as a sponsor, what are our responsibilities, then how conduct should be there so that there is no bias. For example, randomization. There are many such procedures which are already documented in GCP documentation. So we follow it 100%. This is one thing we do. Second thing we do is clinical studies can be with different designs. Like some studies do not include placebo. But what we do is double-blind placebo-controlled design we follow. This design is a gold standard all over the world, which takes care of this bias particularly.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me when I'm evaluating ingredients in the marketplace or around the world, and I see studies where there's no placebo to compare it against, or they compare it against some other material but not a placebo, and I'm like, well, how do you know how effective your ingredient is? Before you go any further, I toured your factory, your facilities, everything about 2 years ago, and I remember sitting in the conference room there and looking across the table at your founder and said, the way you guys do this, it reminds me of pharmaceuticals because that's where I came from, pharma. And I said, you guys aren't a nutraceutical company, you're like a drug discovery company, and because of everything. Would that be a good way to say it, you think?
Yeah, we follow that scientific vigor.
Yeah.
Which we also we are applying it to nutraceutical products development.
Awesome.
Natural product development, I will say.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Then we also add certain other things like ethics is very important for us. Human ethics committees, their approvals. This process is very streamlined so that we have to follow these international norms. And even we also very strictly follow the statistical guidelines. So statistical guidelines will give us idea how much sample should we take, which are methodologically calculated. It is not just any sample size we take.
That's
It is derived from certain scientific principles.
the p-value, right? Is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Or more than that.
There are different designs of trial.
Okay.
So in statistical methodology, in fact, that is also mentioned in the US FDA guidance to industry in some other document from them. So that also we actually follow the drug guidelines. So scientific vigor which we follow is very deep and robust clinical studies we do. So that makes it more reliable, you know.
Quality is what
Quality
yeah,
is there.
you're looking for the quality study,
it's not only quantity,
it's not
it's
quantity.
quality.
Exactly. Perfect. You said it great. Thank you. So when it comes to the human clinical studies, there's got to be like a protocol that you follow. Can you give us an idea of what that really looks like?
Yeah, so as I told you that we follow ICGCP guidelines. So generally ICGCP, all the activities, there are long list which are divided into three parts. One is before we take approval. That is the one important milestone. We should get permission from ethics committee to conduct the trial. Then second part will be the recruitment and actual medicine, giving medicines, patient will follow that. Then they will have certain measurements. And third part is once we collect all the data, we have to analyze the data and get some report, conclusions, and number of other administrative issues also we have to tackle after patient completed their treatments. So pre-study, during study and post-study, we can divide into three parts. So pre-study part is generally main part is protocol. So we need to have a clear protocol which should be documented and signed by all the stakeholders. Which stakeholder, which I mean that principal investigator, site personnel, who will supply the medicine, and those kind of things. They are for protocol also. ICGCP already mentioned about guidelines. We follow those formats. Then we will submit all these documents related to our formats, and ultimately protocol is the map, roadmap, how we are going to conduct the study. That will be submitted to ethics committee. They will evaluate. If they have any questions, they will ask. We will give the answers. If required, we will modify. Otherwise, they will approve the protocol. Then the next phase will start, where we actually dispense the medicine to the subjects, and they will consume it as per instructions. Then there will be some visits where we will measure. Some of the measurement will be direct, clinical judgments. Some of the measurements will be scores. Some of the measurements will be actual biochemical analysis.
And these are all things that you laid out in your protocol that was reviewed. So it's basically now you did the protocol, and now this is the level of where it's actually being enacted.
Yes.
Okay.
So we will strictly follow the protocol. Everybody in the clinical trial involved, those who are involved in clinical study, they will follow the protocol. So that will give some data. So data management guidelines are also mentioned in ICGCP. So it should not be, during whole process, this is blinded. So those people who are conducting the trial, they won't know. The principal investigator also don't know, and subject also don't know what they are taking. That's why it is double blind. So that gives us confidence, and the data will be unbiased. Then this data will be collected, and then it will be given to the statistician. He will analyze, he or she will analyze the data, and they will give a statistical report, and then from the report we'll discuss about with the principal investigator what are their opinion, conclusions, what is happening here, what is happening there, which output measure is giving significant difference, which is not giving, and important part is safety also. So adverse drug reactions, all these things will be, so safety also will be continuously monitored.
So the patient who is going through the protocol, their safety is at hand throughout the whole process.
In fact, all these processes, we ensure that patient for our subject.
Wow.
Even though we know about safety, but still as a part of the responsibility and ethics, we do.
So what of the three it sounds like the most important thing is really just getting the protocol set up properly. Would that be true, or is it,
every activity is very important.
Okay.
Actually, we have to do with the same vigor what we start with, and this study can go to some time, like it may go to some months. So it is important to properly monitor the study. Those documentation part is also important. It should be medically correct. It should be documentation, good documentation practices also we follow. In fact, sometimes we give these studies to some CRO and we audit the study. Sometimes we conduct the study ourselves depending on the need. But all this study is audited by somebody who is not part of the study. So that gives us confidence about the quality of the data.
These are all things I wanted to hear as a science guy, because I work with, I consult with many people all over the world, or I get thrown ingredients that people want me to review, and it's amazing how many companies really just don't follow every process and audit it as well. So it's just really impressive what you do here at Indus Biotech, I have to say.
And this process gives us, first of all, confidence, and that was very helpful. Every time whatever question comes in about the product, we could answer it because we have comprehensive documentation in place. That is the advantage, and that gives us confidence to the subject also, that whatever is the data is there, it is quite reliable.
That's great.
And without any bias.
Oh, thank you for that. It's impressive, because I was expecting you to say one process was more important than the other, and the cool thing is you said they're all equally as important. So yeah,
small things matters a lot.
I love it. Thank you. Indus Biotech has a really powerful reputation regards to getting publications, presentations, etc. Can you give me an idea of like what impact does that have on either the scientific community, or for me, maybe more importantly, to the public?
So when we wanted to give this data to the people, how we can disseminate that. So we thought that if we can publish in peer-reviewed journal, it will give a validation for our science from third party. It is very important to have those third party validations. So that is why we submitted our work to the journals, and I am happy to tell you that we have about more than 100 publications, now to be exact 106.
Wow.
All of them are well abstracted. These are submitted to the journal which are well abstracted. Like at least we see quality of the abstracting service like PubMed or Scopus abstraction.
Yeah.
So the journals also we have to select carefully so that it is having some reputation in the scientific community. Then apart from that, we also disseminate our research through conference presentations. So about more than 70-75 presentations we had all over the world, mostly in international conferences, so that we can quickly give this information about our studies to the relevant community, that scientific community, of course, scientists and other people. So that is how we try to do some effort to reach out to the relevant communities, particularly scientists in this case.
Right.
But at the same time, we thought that if some of the material can be published in a form of book, it will be easy for the people to have all this information in one place. So what we did is, about fenugreek, we actually published about more than 80 publications. So extensively we studied fenugreek for a number of effects that included chemistry part of it and biology part of it. So we summarize those information, we try to review this information in the form of book, Plus, we also try to include the views and scientific work which is conducted on fenugreek from other part of the world. About 23 chapters we included, which covers most of the aspect of fenugreek research as a raw ingredient for healthcare and wellness.
I have to tell you that I think I was the first recipient of the book.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, when the book launch happened, it was, I think it happened in Vitafoods Asia, if I'm not mistaken. And I was asked to be one of the recipients of the first book. And it's an amazing, it's nice to hear what you're saying, because as I think a lot of people think of Indus Biotech, is company name is synonymous with fenugreek. We learned earlier from your founder that that's more than just fenugreek, but the reality is like that's kind of what has gotten you to where you are now. The fact that you just said that you didn't just talk about your studies, you wanted to inform basically the globe, the world, about the health benefits beyond your own studies as well.
We wanted to propagate the wellness of fenugreek as an ingredient also, as a scientist, as a science-based company. We wanted to do that also. So that is why all these efforts are we did for the book publication.
Yeah.
What happened is, once that with these publications, conferences, books and other things, we could get the trust of the consumer. And that is what we also saw in the our responses. And at the same time, regulatory needs are also there. Now many of the regulatory bodies, now they are also going forward to make publication as an essential part of their dossiers. They wanted to see more and more third-party validation for the product before they approve the product. So our publications immensely help in this respect. For example, we extensively studies all the extracts of fenugreek for their toxicology. And because of that, almost 4 to 5 of our extracts got GRAS affirmation in United States based on these publications, because they only recognize published studies.
That's amazing. Well, it's awesome that you're not just taking your science to use it for selling more product, but you're using it to really better the science community. And that just shows even more about the integrity that exists here at Indus Biotech. We've talked a few times about the clinical studies, the process you go through, et cetera. Either I'm a subject in one of your studies, or it's already after your studies have done, you've shown that your fenugreek extract does X, okay? How does this stuff really affect the consumer? Like for me, as a guy that does mostly education, I get it, but I'm just curious, like, what do you feel like your process, your science, your studies ends up having, an effect on the end consumer? Because that's who we're trying to really help anyway.
Yeah, so what I believe, our studies, because of the depth, width and the quality, will give consumer a trustworthy solution. There will be many products in the market, but where they will trust. So these studies that can give us a confidence to the consumer that what I am taking, it will be safe and it will be effective, because it is tested with vigorous testing in the past, with respect to toxicology, with respect to clinical studies, with respect to even mechanism. So they will be having complete information, and that will give them confidence to consume that. That is one. And many of the time, regulatory body also get approves this because of this extensive backup studies, and not only number but quality and depth. So that is, according to me, should be the value which we are providing to the consumers. Apart from that, many of our products are quite innovative mechanisms. So by doing this research and studies, we are actually adding the value to the scientific community itself. A scientific, I will say, the confidence. Means we are trying to advance to the scientific knowledge. That is also we are trying to do, which will be, our products are having innovative mechanisms. Our products will have convenience to the patients or the subjects. Like instead of oral, we generally provided a nasal spray or some other form where there also we have good amount of research. Formulation, which I won't talk much on this part, but our formulations are also novel, and with the safety and efficacy, if you see together as a package, it is quite valuable package for the customer.
I have two things I'm going to add to it. It's not a question, but I just want to kind of like put a little more meat behind what you just said. I just spoke at a conference in France, and my subject matter was the difference between a standardized botanical extract and a nutraceutical. And I actually used fenugreek as one of my examples. And within my slide, I actually used 4 of Indus Biotech's branded ingredients as examples of, in this case, I could have used more, but I didn't have room on my slides. But you know what I'm saying. So I picked 4 of your ingredients, and that really shows, because each one is perhaps a different fraction, and you've done the clinical research to show that if you take, and that's the second part of this thing, the more of the meat is that the way you're doing your science, to me, it's telling me, like you said, it's safe, it's not toxic. Those are very important. I don't think the consumer always necessarily looks at that, but people in R&D formulating do. But the key is, how much do I take? How long do I need to take it? And what are the effects I should expect are so important. And that's the other thing that, because you're following very strict guidelines in your clinicals, wouldn't you say, like, that's why you have so many amazing ingredients, literally nutraceuticals trademarked, coming from one food type ingredient?
Yeah, so what we are trying to do is we are putting our dedication and our passion to these scientific studies, so that whatever product we will coming out will be which will definitely give some very good value to the customer. Yep. Or the consumer.
They have confidence in efficacy.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for what you do. I'm really impressed. Like I said, I toured Indus Biotech almost 2 years ago, and I was completely blown away by just the amount of science that goes into what you do here. So I appreciate you taking time with me today.
Thank you very much
Sure.
for the appreciation. We will try to continue to for better products in the future.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.